I am Jill Parsons. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank Nicole Gwynn, my coworker, who is our membership and event specialist, for coordinating today's event. So right now we have all of the participants, attendees on mute, and we ask that you jot any questions that you have in the chat feed, and Nicole will monitor those, and then we'll also allow a little time at the end for open question and answer. So joining us today is Kristen Meeks with West Virginia Social Media Consultants. Our chamber is so lucky to have Kristen as a member. She participates on several committees. One of those is the Women in Leadership Committee, and in fact, Kristen's first touch point with our chamber was the Women in Leadership Luncheon held in the fall of 2012. She happened upon our event, probably on a social media post that we did about the event. She came, she made great connections, and she joined the Chamber of Commerce shortly after. Kristen is so generous with her time and her talents to help fellow chamber members through training and various topics that involve technology and communications. So today's topic is, quote, how to beat social media fatigue. I'm excited for our discussion to learn some tips and tricks for getting over the day-to-day social media hump. So Kristen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm sure everyone can hear me and everything. So I'm sure none of us have social media fatigue after being essentially home for, the last 6 months or so. That is something that we deal with no matter if there's a pandemic or not. We definitely can get burnout on social media and the need to feel like we have to be on social media all the time. So, well, first I'll say thank you for the Chamber for letting me present this. I presented this over in Athens to a group of women in networking, as they call themselves, and we had some great discussion and thought that this was definitely something that everyone could learn a little bit more about. So it's a short little presentation, but I am going to talk about at least these 3 things, along with any other questions you have. We can get to those towards the end as well. So really, what is social media fatigue? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to beat it in business, because I feel like I get a lot of, it's a good thing. I get a lot of phone calls and comments like, oh, you're busy. You're always doing something. There's something going on. And I think it's a lot to do with what is being put out on social media. And I always kind of laugh and think, I'm really not on it 24/7. I promise I couldn't be. I was like, I have a very special needs dog. I have a cat that drives me crazy. A 7-year-old that's remote learning 2 days or 3 days a week. My husband's pretty self-sufficient, so we won't throw him under the bus today, but I don't have time to be on social media all the time. And I think that's a fortunate thing. And so I'm going to show you some of my tips and tricks that make people, I think, feel like I'm on social media. The perception is I'm connected, I'm always doing something, but I'm not. I'm scheduling, I'm doing some other little things here and there. I'm using some best practices that I've found throughout the years that just made it seem like I'm online all the time, but I really don't have to be. And then personally, I think it's been about 2 years ago now. If you know me, I'm a long time yogi. I've been practicing yoga for probably 5 or 6 years now. And I felt like that was like my tipping point. I would come out of yoga, I'd go to my purse, pick up my phone, and I'd have all these notifications. And I'm like, I would just like, almost like everything I did in yoga would come undone in like that 30 seconds after leaving. And it was a lot of personal notifications, but I felt this need, I have to check that like, or I have to check that comment. And so I made a change that I'm going to talk about as we move forward here about 2 years ago. And that has really helped me personally on social media, but also I kind of did it on the business side things too. And so far so good. It hasn't killed my business. So I'll tell you my story and talk about that as we move on. I always struggle when I have things popped up here to get that to come up. There we go. So what is social media fatigue? You may have just thought, okay, social media and fatigue, I kind of get both of those. So I did find the exact definition from Techopedia. Very, very, very trendy stuff right here. It says it's when, you know, you get so far into social media that you tend to kind of pull back from social media because you're just overwhelmed. And as marketers, business owners, we have some nonprofit leaders in the room, we don't want people to pull back from social media. I mean, that is definitely a way that we want to communicate. And in the past 6 months, it's been like one of the only ways that we're able to communicate, you know, in the digital world. There's a few more digital platforms you could be on, but really, you know, we're not seeing people face to face. We're not using those traditional medias as much. So we don't want people to get fatigued, but that's what happens is they pull away and they may feel like they're on too many sites. And that's always something that I struggle with when I talk to people, because I get clients because they feel like they're not on enough social media sites. I need to be on everything, or I need to be on Twitter, and we're not even on Twitter. That just happened yesterday. Someone said, we're not even on Twitter. And I said, why? Your customers aren't on Twitter. I wouldn't be on Twitter either. So people feel this need to be on so many social media sites. And that does, you know, when you're on so many, you feel like that fatigue really sets in. And my philosophy is always starting small. So in a business world, or even if you're kind of a new user to social media, is find the one you like the most and stick to that. You don't have to be on all of them. You're not going to miss out on anything too much by not being on one of them. You might have too many friends and followers. And I can remember, I always tell stories, so I apologize for my stories, but I remember when I first started this business, I joined, it was another chamber, and I was at a meeting, and he was like, hey, he was talking to me, this guy was, and he was like, pull up your friends list. And I'm like, okay. So I pulled my friends list, like, oh, you only have like 1,300 friends? And I'm like, yeah, like not thinking anything of it, like, yeah. And he was like, oh, well, I mean, you can have up to 5,000. I just think you need more friends. And I'm like, no, I really don't. Like, I'm good, you know? And so I always say too, it's not a popularity contest. He who has the most friends or followers is not usually the person that's making the most money. So if we're looking at that in terms of return on investment, or we're looking at it in terms of participants and donors, it's not always the people that have. There are very few industries that benefit from having so many friends and followers, and that directly affects their business. Most of the time, it's really about cultivating those relationships with that group that you have. So if you have 5 friends or followers, if you have good relationships with those 5 people, then you're going to see a return on investment on that social media more than you are if you have 5,000. And then also, people are just spending so much time online trying to maintain those connections. And so if you're on too many sites and you have too many friends, then of course you're going to feel burnout trying to maintain those connections. And, you know, it's always for me been quality over quantity. And people are always like, oh, you need thousands of followers, or you need all these clients, and, you know, all this different stuff. And my total business structure, thought process, which goes back to growing up in a small business, has always been keeping things small, keeping things, you know, on a relationship level to connecting. And I think if we can kind of change our mindset that way, then we can avoid what Techopedia is calling social media fatigue. So how are we going to do that? Because, you know, you got to be everywhere. We got to cure it, right? And we got to be everywhere because our business is on social media. Our job might be on social media. Our kids' stuff. I mean, I've had friends that only joined Facebook because they felt the schools forced them to, because it was the way they were communicating. And so they're going to sit here and tell me, well, I can't just step away. I'll miss something. You know, I'll miss something important, whether it's business or personal. But you can step away. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how to appear online, and really only appear, or how to appear online all the time, but only get the content that serves you, and that makes sure that you aren't, you know, just putting out fires and trying to figure out where everything is, trying to organize that a little bit better. Let me move my stuff around here a little bit. There we go. So how are we going to do it? Well, let's talk about business first, because that's where I live a lot of the times. You know, my business and personal definitely overlap. So, you know, I feel like we use social media to communicate, right? So we're constantly trying to communicate with new followers, which could be potential customers, could be donors, participants, all these different people. And we're using things like Facebook pages, groups, we're using events, we're using Instagram, we're using all of this stuff. And we always feel the need, oh, I need to get that out there. I need to get that out there. And a little bit of planning to make sure that you're having stuff out ahead of time that people will know about. And then scheduling it will really allow you just to schedule it and forget it. I have many clients that I schedule months ahead of time. And a lot of times we have planned this stuff over here, you know, a couple months out. I always think of it in terms of an event planner. I've never been an event planner, but I think, okay, how far out would you want to plan so people know about what's going on? It doesn't have to be an event. It could be a sale. It could be a giving campaign. But how far out do people need to know in order for them to make that decision that you want them to make? And then we schedule it. So there's clients that I'll schedule months ahead of time, and then we'll be chatting about something else, and they'll say, oh yeah, I saw that post on da 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 da, and I'll have to think to myself, oh, did I post that? And I go over and I'm like, oh, well, look, I did do that. And a lot of times it's not dated, but I mean, if you could go back and look at it, sometimes it's dated months ahead of time, but it's so that is guaranteed that communication is going out at the time you want it, and you're not going, oh, I really need to remember to put that out there. Because I think that's where that anxiety and fatigue come about, is that we're like, okay, we know we need to do stuff, but we didn't plan ahead of time to do it. But if we do plan and schedule, then it just shows up, which is really great, right? And then you can just forget about it and kind of talk a little bit about some ways to monitor that in the next couple slides, but you can kind of just forget about it to a sense. So there are some little new scheduling programs out there that I wanted to make you aware of. One that I probably talk about, and I just talked about this morning with a client, you know, actually had a real live face-to-face meeting today, like first one all week. But I talked to her about this because we had not met for a couple months. And I'm like, hey, if you're having trouble with scheduling, here's something that I want to bring to your attention. And this is a new internal scheduler from Facebook and Instagram. And the reason I really point this one out is most of us, those are the two big platforms, you know, and we're going to be able to use that scheduling system to schedule most of our stuff on those pages. So this is just for pages. This isn't for stories. This isn't for groups. This isn't for events, but this is just for pages. And that's the big one, I guess, in the room. And it's called Creator Studio. And there's several ways you can get to Creator Studio, but depending on what Facebook layout you have at the moment, that they don't switch by the end of the week on you, that link right there might be your best bet. So if you go to business.facebook.com/Creator Studio, that'll take you directly, I mean, it's within Facebook, but it'll take you directly to where you would be able to schedule both Facebook and Instagram. So if you remember, if you've taken any trainings with me before, if you've tried to schedule on Instagram on the app on your phone, that's not possible, right? We could schedule on Facebook on the app on our phone, but we just can't do that on Instagram. So this is for, and they do have an app, but let me go back. This link is just for desktops. Creator Studio does have an app. Right now, as of this moment, you can schedule Facebook, but not Instagram. And you can't schedule stories yet, but I feel like those two things are going to happen here. I just did an Instagram training yesterday, and I noticed a couple things were updated just from the last time I had done that training. And so I feel like from what I've read and what I'm seeing that it's coming. But for now, the best way to do it is, you know, business.facebook.com/Creator Studio. And that, if you're getting any errors in Facebook or anything like that, this is the place to go. And I feel like this is a nice one-stop shop. You can actually click over to Instagram and schedule, like if you want to do the same thing on Instagram to Facebook, which some of us do, you could schedule them both at the same time. So that's just a little hack that's internal. Facebook likes it, Instagram likes it. You don't have to touch anything else. You don't have to push anything on your phone. It goes automatically. So that's a little newer kind of hack. And hopefully it will continue to get better and be able to do other things as well. So some other social media schedulers that we have that are third party are later.com and Hootsuite. So if you have been in the marketing realm for a long time, you may hate Hootsuite because it's probably one of the oldest ones on the block, and it definitely has its challenges, but they did do an update just in the last maybe month, 6 weeks. And so it is my preferred scheduler, and that's for like you could do LinkedIn, you could do Twitter, Google, I think you can do on Hootsuite as well. I was trying to think what else. Pinterest is a new one they're doing. So that's a social media scheduler that you can use. So again, you could choose what you're going to communicate and then just schedule it and forget it. Later is a newer program, and it actually allows you to schedule stories. So if you are really into Facebook and Instagram stories, you are able to schedule it through Later. Now, it is a paid version for that. Hootsuite, you can do up to 3, I believe, platforms for free. And then Later, you can do a lot for free. But if you want to schedule stories, you're going to have to pay for that, which is like $15 a month. But those are just some like little scheduling hacks, just programs that are going to make our lives a little bit easier, and really just another step in getting that, lack of fatigue there from social media. But okay, so I told you to schedule it and I told you to forget it. But what if you miss something, right? That's the big fear, and sometimes that does make or break. I've heard stories where, especially even starting out in startups, oh, hey, if I don't get to that message in time, if I don't respond immediately, that person moves on to somebody else. So how can you make sure that you are getting the right notifications and you're getting notified about that message that you need, so they don't move on to the next person without having to sit on social media 24/7? And the key to it is your notification settings. And so we have notification settings pretty much anywhere and everywhere. And so if you go into your platform, so whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think Pinterest even, you go into your phone, you're going to look for notifications. And, there's notifications that can be set up within the platform that says, hey, every time I get a message, I want an email. And I have that set up because I'm really bad about, I miss messages. It doesn't pop up on my phone. Like, I have the notifications turned off on my phone, but it doesn't pop up in my normal notifications, like within the app. So I've had to set that up that I get an email every time they message my business page because I have missed messages before. So you can set that up to how you want to be communicated with. So I feel like if I'm in my email, I'm in work mode, right? I get on my computer, I open up my email. If I see an email from Facebook that says, hey, you have a message on your business page, then I'm right then ready to respond, right? And I'm in the business mindset. Now, it might have been a couple hours since I've checked it. So you may need it to be something quicker. There's text messaging you can set up to be notified by. And so a lot of that's internal within the platform, and each platform's a little different. And that's mainly for, your desktop notifications to go to email and text. But what about the notifications on this phone? I have one. Nope, it's just a text. I've turned off all my notifications. That's my spoiler alert there. So you have your phone that has other notification settings. So just because you turn some off within the app doesn't mean they're not going to show up on your phone. So you're going to need to go into your phone settings and look at those notifications and see how you want to be notified. One of the options is to come up on that front screen. So you may opt for some of the notifications. Let's say you have a really active Instagram account, and that's where people DM you and buy your products and stuff like that, where Facebook, you just don't see that as much. Well, you could turn Facebook notifications off, but then leave Instagram on, right? Because you're going to where your people are the most. So everyone's phone's a little different, but you can go in there and change those. And just to let you know, that's the end of my story, is that I have turned off all of my notifications on my phone. So the only things I get are text messages. I do get the school's app notification because that is what is very important in my life right now. I need to know what the rolling curve is or whatever that thing is so I can see what I can plan the next week. But I only get text and phone set up in my notification. So if somebody's going to call me, that's going to be probably pretty important. And if they're going to text me, obviously they have my phone number, so that's important. These notification, like everyone that likes a picture or, commented on something, I have turned completely off. And you might think, oh my gosh, how does she function in social media without seeing every single notification? Well, I kind of laugh and say it's kind of like that book, The 4-Hour Work Week. If anyone's read that, I think everyone in business has read that thinking that they could do it. But the mindset was just check in a couple times a day instead of being online all the time. So like, I think his philosophy was like, check your email morning, noon, and night or something like that. And that's what I've kind of set up to do, is that it's not that I'm just leaving it and saying, well, I'm just going to ignore those notifications because they're a pain and I don't want them. It's I'm checking into them when I'm in the mindset and I feel like I get more work done because I'm like, okay, it's time to check those notifications. It's time to get back to comments. It's time to respond. And then I do it then. And I feel like the quality is a lot better. So I decide to notifications, turn on the good, turn off the bad. Do you really need to know every time somebody likes a photo that you posted? I hope not. No, you should not be validated by the like. So you can turn that notification off. But what is important? And so I have a client that says, people message me and they book through messaging. Well, that's a really important thing to you. If it's comments, if you've asked a question, if you're really in this referral, which a lot of us are in the service industry, referrals go a long way. So these recommendations, I really like to know when somebody recommends me. So I've set up some auto response within Facebook messaging that they get a message from me if they give me a recommendation automatically that just says, hey, thank you so much for the recommendation. I really appreciate it. I hope we can continue to do work together. It's very personalized, from me, but I don't even touch it. So then when I do get on and see the notification that so-and-so recommended me, that message is already gone. So it feels like I'm there thanking them immediately, but it's total automation through Facebook. So like I mentioned, I turned on email, turned on text, and I really do this case-by-case basis. So when I'm working with people and we're trying to figure out a good mix for them, because it can be very overwhelming, to start this process with social media and start doing your business on social media. And I say, you got to figure out what's going to be best for you. If you hate text messaging, then absolutely don't turn that on. If you don't want an email, don't turn that on. But if that's, and if you need all those notifications pop on your phone because that's when you're going to do it, then that's going to work for you. So this is just what has worked for me. And like I said, I kind of turned off those notifications. I believe it's been about 2 years ago. And I felt a lot better since then about that. So what about scrolling, right? So we always get online. I always laugh. I tell clients about the Facebook Pages app. If you're not familiar with the Facebook Pages app, that is just an app where only your business page shows up. So all your friends' newsfeed stuff doesn't show up there. And so if people are going, oh, I get on the app and I just get lost and like 3 hours go by and I haven't posted anything for my business. And I feel like we've all been there. And I'm like, okay, quit getting sucked into the news feed. Download the Pages app and only go to the pages and just check that. Now, let's say you still want to go have your timeline. I don't think she's in here, and I won't throw her under the bus, but there is somebody we do business with that several years ago, probably 5 years ago, she turned off everybody on her news feed. And again, she's telling me this, and I'm like, oh, you're my hero. Like, how can you do that? Like, that is amazing. Like, it's still, I'm not there yet, but that's awesome. And that has just helped her and her business and her life. And so clean up that timeline. You don't have, that's an extreme, I've told her, I'm like, you're extreme, I laugh, but that is the extreme side of that. But the other side of it is that you can hide people. It is possible. You can snooze people for 30 days, but I'll tell you what, it'll be the fastest 30 days you've ever felt. Because somebody will pop up on my news feed and I'll go, oh, it's been 30 days, huh? Okay. So then you decide to hide them. You can show, there's certain things, there's like a little 3 dots. If you're scrolling in your news feed and you see like 3 dots by different posts, if you click on that, you can choose some things like see less of stuff. There for a while, I forget who it was, but it was like a mattress place. I kept getting this ad every single time I got on Facebook, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't even think I've Googled mattresses. Like, I don't know where this came from. I hadn't even thought I needed a mattress. Like, but I kept getting it. So I went over there and I thought, okay, like the 100th time I clicked it, see less of these kinds of ads. Yes. And so that kind of cleaned up my news feed on that side of things. But the other side of things is I want to see certain things first. I want to make sure I don't miss out. And so for me personally, it's the school, it's certain clients I have. I always laugh and say I have some rogue clients. I have to put them on See First just to make sure they don't put anything out there. But that might not be your case. But you used to only be able to have 10 See First. And what See First means is that when you go to like do your little update of your scroll on your phone, if you have not, if that post is posted from the last time you did that, it will show up on top of everybody else's. So if it's the school, or if it's your business page, or it's a partner or something, you know, and you can change those out. It doesn't have to stay. Once you hit See First one time doesn't mean you have to keep it there all the time. It used to be only 10. Now I feel like I'm limited, but I have clients that are not limited. So it's one of those kind of weird glitchy things. So you can choose See First, which is great. I mentioned having the right apps about the Pages app, especially if you're using Facebook for Business, which the majority of us are using that as like one of our #1 platforms on social media. And so if you're using it for just business, you don't have to be on the Facebook app. I have plenty of people that have deleted that Facebook app, just your personal app, off their phone, right? But they've kept the Facebook Pages app, which connects you to all of the business pages you have admin rights to. Another app I really love is the Facebook Ads app, because I'm always running ads. I'm running ads for clients, and it allows me to just click over there and look at it quickly. And so if I see something I don't think is right, or I just need to kind of look at something quickly, I can do that from that app. And then also, if you do see that Messenger is a way that people communicate with you. So 10 years ago, I don't think anyone would have Facebook messaged me and said, hey, let's have a meeting. Now it's a weekly occurrence. So it's whether it's personal or business. So I would have to, I feel like, keep that Messenger app. You know, I don't have the notification set up to get when somebody messages me, but I do check it those couple times a day to make sure there's nobody, you know, sitting there waiting for a message back. But those are the 3 apps that I've kept. I haven't deleted the regular Facebook app, full disclosure, but I know people that have. But you can set a timer. So there's even, I think, I don't know if it's just an iPhone thing, but there's even like a thing that you can set that says, I don't only let me be on social media 1 hour a day. And then it just cuts you off. And I'm sure you have to do some sort of password thing to get back in. And some people would, but I know that's been very successful for people, is, you know, just check in as you needed it. And then also set yourself up some parameters. You know, it's just like setting boundaries on other things. Oh, I clicked a couple more times. So just to kind of recap that information, you know, prioritize your notifications. You know, it's a one-time thing. That's what I said I love about. You can just go in your Facebook, go under your settings, check that out, change some things. If you don't like it, you can always change it back. Same thing with your phone. And then once you do that one time, you don't have to do it again, you know, unless you want to make some changes. But you really need to find out what works for you. So a lot of times it's not like going in and turning everything off, because then you start missing things, or start, you know, maybe it affects your business. You don't want to do that. And then you find out what works for you, turn some stuff back on. And with everything, I feel that less is more. I say that as my child puts on makeup. sometimes. Don't forget, less is more. And so it's the same thing. Less is more in social media too. You don't have to be on all the platforms to be successful. And those that are on all the platforms are probably not as successful as you think they are. That's a lot of time and a lot of running yourself thin on all those platforms. So finding out which one really works for your business, works for your lifestyle, where you are getting your communication, where you want to communicate with people, where your customers are, figuring that out, and figuring out how you can kind of bring that down to just one or two is going to make it a lot easier on you. And then set those social media timers, whether it's on your phone or, just personally somewhere, setting a timer to keep yourself from getting the social media fatigue. I just put the in front of it, so I'm officially Appalachian. There we go. So thank you. That's what I have today. And there's my contact information. Most of you in the room, I know, and you know how to get a hold of me. But if not, there's my stuff. I think tomorrow my email goes out about my 5-day challenge that starts Monday. So you can get information. It's a 5-day marketing challenge. You can get information on my website if you go to that site. So do we have some questions?
Great information. So I've seen, obviously, Claire has listed in the chat that she uses the Creator Studio, and it's an amazing resource. She's been scheduling things out 6 months in advance. So great testimonial there to the Career Studio. Nicole just introduced that to me on my phone, on the app. So we put it on my phone. I didn't realize there was also a desktop version of it. And so I'll be really interested to go in and check out the desktop version of the Creator Studio, because suddenly you're posting something, or even if you're scheduling something in Facebook, then you just end up down the rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, you're like 30 minutes have just disappeared right in front of my eyes. And so I'm glad I'm not the only one. So if you have a question, if you would like to jot it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and share with the entire group, now is the time to do that.
Claire, glad to see you. I saw where you're over at Westbrook now, so I was glad to see that.
So it looks like Sabrina will be emailing you soon about some Instagram TV uploads.
Yes, good old IGTV. Yes, I can help you. We've done that before. Well, thank you. Thank you for everyone for attending.
So I will give you one tip. It's not social media fatigue, but it's email fatigue and paper fatigue. So I try to use an abbreviation called FAST whenever I am sitting in front of my email list, or I'm looking at the papers on my desk, or things that come into me. So, and it stands for file, act on it, send it on, or toss it. And so everything that's coming in an email, if I can act on it right then and there, I'm going to do it. If I need to send it on to somebody, sorry, Nicole, I send it on to Nicole, or whoever needs to have that information. We get a lot of information from the U.S. Chamber, from the West Virginia Chamber, different resources. So if I can send it out to different chamber members who I think it's pertinent to, I'm going to do it right then and there. If I look at it, it's not anything that's pertinent to me. It's not anything I'm ever going to need to find again. I'm going to delete it. That's the T, toss it. And then if it's something I think, well, I don't need this now, nobody else needs this now, I don't want to delete it, I'm just going to dump it into, I've got folders in my emails, so it's kind of ends up in a file folder. So I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the Secretary of State sent out some information about the importance of the census. I want to send out a quick little e-blast to the chamber members to remind people about the importance of, completing the census. I remember that's where it's going to be, and I go to that folder and pull it out. And so that's always been a tip that I've used for a long time, is FAST, file, act on it, send it on, or toss it.
Yeah, I like that. I use my email as kind of like a to-do list. Mm-hmm. And so I'm the same way. People are always like, oh, you got back to me so quick in email. But that's, if I don't do that right then it's just it's going to go someplace else. So, and then I go through and delete everything I don't need. And then whatever's up there is like, okay, that's my to-do list. That's what I need to accomplish, whatever that date and time is.
Very good.
Oh,
Well, we
yeah.
had some great folks on here. Okay,
So Claire
so
has a good question
yes.
about blocking out time. And so this isn't necessarily just for email or Facebook, but business wise. So I know we have some like entrepreneur, but I think that everybody could benefit from this. This business coach I worked with, she did what she called CEO hours, where you took like a morning and you just worked on your business instead of like all the things, you know what I mean? You're working on client stuff and your business. And so it was kind of like a block of time. And that really did, I need to get back to that. I did that for probably a year and it really did help. And I think that kind of thing, I follow a gal that does block time in her business. And so she has certain, and she even has her personal life in it too. You know, she's like, at this time I make dinner and this time I help my kids with their homework. So her whole week essentially is blocked out. And I just think time management wise, that would be really something that we could all, I mean, I probably need to start doing that more too.
Yeah, Claire, I am, I've never been really good at that. As far as, you know, when I see an email notification pop up on my screen, I'm normally popping on that email just to eyeball it, even though I get just a little preview of it in the notification. And so that's probably one of those notifications that would be good to maybe go away. And that would force me then, you know, take a break on whatever project I'm working on, you know, every hour, every half hour, and just check and see what emails have come in. But you're exactly right. It can be a time swamp or a time suck. It is that you get swamped in a time suck of checking all your emails, and it is hard to do that. But is that something that Claire, you're thinking you might want to do? Yes, your actual
You can
seat.
have your
Kevin
own
will not
CEO
mind you
hours.
taking CEO hours, but you know that it's like everything that you do in your life that you try to make a habit. So if you say, you know what, I'm going to walk every morning, if as long as you do it consistently for a week to 2 weeks, and then it becomes just kind of common in your life, it's not something that you're thinking about anymore. And so I would say if that's something that you would want to do as far as checking emails, try it out for a work week. Just, you know, try it for 1 week, see how it works. And then if you're like, hey, this is working for me, then you might continue. And by the second or third week, you'll just find that that's an automatic action for you as opposed to something you're thinking about with some type of regularity. So that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Now, that 4 Hour Work Week book I was talking about earlier, that is a lot of the same concepts, you know, of that block scheduling.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Well, Kristen, thank you so much for your time today. You've got Kristen's contact information. Obviously, you know how to find Nicole and I. Thank you so much to those of you. Hopefully you've seen, speaking of emails and checking emails, our e-blast that went out this morning. We have launched a new member calendar. Thank you to Nicole. She worked on that, and I hope you got to watch her little tutorial video that she did that shows how to upload your events. And so we now have a separate calendar on movchamber.org that is just for members to post your sales, your events, your activities. We will eventually have one where you can load up kind of your news and communications. That'll be a separate portal that will be coming soon, and we're hoping to also do jobs. But this is a member calendar, and we've already had, oh my gosh, almost a dozen things that have come through so far today where people are posting those events and activities. So that will be something that you can share with fellow chamber members, and it will be open to the general public to be able to see your events and activities. So if you have something that's coming up in a couple weeks, add the chamber to your to-do list for your event. So if, just like Kristen was saying, if you're working on an event and your task list is, I'm going to make a flyer about this event, I'm now going to print the flyer and share it with my current customers around the store, or I'm going to post it on Facebook, I'm going to send it to the news media, the traditional news media, but then please add the MOV Chamber member calendar also to that to-do list and load it up there. So thank you, everybody, again. Oh, yep, Bethany, I saw that you had sent something over. I appreciate that very much. So everybody, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your time and talent with us today. And if anybody needs anything, you know where to find us here at the Chamber of Commerce. And we're so happy to get to see everybody and still provide our programming and content to everybody in this new normal.